please join me in welcoming the filmmakers behind Perfect Days. We have writer-director Wenders. And star Koji Yakusho. Yet again, congratulations to all of you. David Neptune, big thanks for being here with us today. We appreciate you. Vim, you're getting my first question here, a two-parter, because I know this was first pitched to you as a series of short films about public toilets. So I'm curious, what was your first reaction to that pitch, the thing you were most excited to explore? But then can you also tell me something you learned about public toilets in Japanese culture that wound up being a bigger influence on the film than you could have imagined at the start?
Well, frankly, my first reaction was when I only read the first page of the letter, invitation, I just read, coming to Tokyo, I can read quickly, coming to Tokyo, toilets, oh no. Why would I go to look at toilets? But then I turned the page and I saw the toilets and understood that it was an art project and a social project, and realized that 15 great architects, and some of them I knew, Tadao Ando is a personal good old friend of mine, and normally these guys build banks and museums, and now they build a toilet. And that is amazing in itself. And I thought, well, I should at least go and look at these toilets. If they ask me to do something and be inspired, what else do you want? And being invited to go to Tokyo. I love Tokyo. I hadn't been there for a long time, and it was still not possible to go there in 22 because it was still blocked for foreigners. And people of Tokyo were, when the letter was written, still in lockdown. So when I came there in May 22, I checked out the toilets and I was quite impressed. But I also saw the people, the Japanese people, the Tokyonites who came back finally after the longest lockdown in history. And that was, for me, the event. How they took possession of their city was so drastically different from anything I'd seen in Europe, where that comeback out of the lockdown was like there was no tomorrow. Cities were ruined afterwards, parks were ruined, people had lost all sense of decency. I mean, public behavior. The parks where I live in Berlin were all garbage heaps. It seemed the big victim, at least in my part of the world, of the pandemic was the sense of the common good. In Japan, I saw the opposite. It was really endearing to see how respectful they treated their public places and also these toilets. And that's when I thought, as much as I like these toilets and these architects, there is something bigger to do here. And as these people had invited me to be inspired, I told them the truth, and I thought I was probably talking myself out of a good job. And I said, I don't think I'm the man to do these short documentaries on the architects and their creations. I sense there is something much more important here after the pandemic, and that there is something to be done right now in Japan about something that the world could learn from. And to my amazement, they looked at me and said, can that be done? A real feature film? I said, yes, all we need is a good script and a great actor. And that was the beginning of a long friendship.
Oh, I'm going to ask about that friendship. first, just to add to this, the beginning stages of this journey. So you decide you want to turn this idea into a feature film, and you know you want to make it about one main character. Was there any workshopping necessary to figure out the best main character to serve the version of this story you wanted to tell?
No. I knew the work of Koji Yakusho. Actually, I have a very personal story. I knew all of his films. I knew Babel and Tampopo. I'd seen him in samurai movies and cop movies, because from the beginning, when I first saw him, I realized he was very, very special. And that first, if you want me to tell you, as I'm a movie director, I got the job in the Wenders family to select the Christmas movie for the entire family. And that's a lot of people. This is old folks and young folks and middle-aged. And this is the disastrous job, I tell you. You can only go wrong. It's either the young who don't like it or the old who don't like it. You never win. I want to give up on this job, but I'm stuck with it. The only time it ever worked gloriously was when I showed them Shall We Dance? And that's when I discovered him, and I realized he has something that I've never seen again. His eyes are so effective, and he has such kindness in his look, and he's such a kind spirit. So when I was asked which actor do you want, there was no two questions about it. And the next day they came back and said, we asked him, and he said, yes. If you want to make this film, if Wim Wenders is going to make this film, he said, I'm going to be in it. You see? It's easy. And then I had to leave Tokyo again, and the screenwriter, or the guy who had invited me in the first place, he's a great Japanese writer also, and poet. And I said, and I'm going to write the movie with you. And he liked the idea. And I said, you just come with me to Berlin, because we can't write it here. I have to go back. I was on another movie. Is there any screenwriter in the room? Don't hesitate to tell me the truth.
Oh yeah, a couple.
I have to tell you the truth. We wrote this thing in 4 weeks. Now, don't hate me now. Okay.
Good instincts, surrounded yourself with the right people. I love it. Koji, for you now, very, very experienced actor. Can you tell me something about your process that stays the same from film to film, character to character, but then can you tell me something unique that this character demanded during the prep process?
Eh, まず今日は本当にもうすぐスーパーボウルが始まる時間にこのパーフェクト映像を見に劇場まで足を運んでくださってありがとうございます。
First of all, thank you very much for coming to the theater at a time when the Super Bowl is about to
It
start.
hasn't started.
I appreciate you all being
It
here.
hasn't started. You haven't missed it.
そうですね、まずはこの、クランクイン前に2日ぐらい本当にこの東京トイレットプロジェクトの清掃員、トイレの清掃員の方に2日間ぐらい清掃の仕方を教わって、清掃員の人にいろんな取材をしながら、監督が、来日するのをずっと待ってました。
So first of all, I spent about 2 days cleaning toilets with one of the cleaners from the Tokyo Toilet Project, and I learned from them firsthand how to clean the toilets correctly, and I was waiting for our director to arrive in Japan.
で監督と会ったらまず最初に言おうと思ったことがあって、昔東京国際映画祭というものがあって、レッドカーペットを歩く前の控え室でベンダース監督が遠くにいたんですけど、僕はその時ベンダース監督と目が合ったと思って、僕の友人に僕はベンダースと目が合ったんだよって言って自慢してたんですけど、 それでまず最初に監督と会った時に「東京国際映画祭で僕と目が合いましたよね」って言ったら監督が「いや僕は全然覚えてない」って言われました。
So first, I really well at Tokyo Film Festival. There was a time when I was actually in the past in the waiting room, and I remember seeing director Wenders off in the distance, and I thought there was a moment that we met eyes actually, and so I bragged to my friend, I met eyes with director Wenders, and the first time that I met him, I wanted to tell him this story, so I did, and he said he didn't remember this one.
そんな僕を本当によくこの映画で使ってくれたと本当に心から感謝します。
So I'm just really grateful that he used me for this film.
As are we, because you are phenomenal in it. One of my favorite qualities of your performance in this movie is that...
I was too shy to look into your direction.
One of my favorite qualities of your performance in this movie is that you exude so much history of this characters without the movie needing to spell it all out. So it was making me wonder, did you do any backstory work yourself? And if so, is there anything in particular we could feel informing your performance even though we don't see or hear about it in the film?
まあ普通はその、この監督と高崎2人のその脚本家が作り上げてくれた脚本はとてもその説明的な言葉が少ない台本ですけども、とても美しい台本でした。でもその主人公とかその周りのそれぞれのキャラクターについての過去とかそのバックグラウンドについては書かれてもいませんでしたので、でもそういう場合は俳優は自分たちで自分の過去の物語を作っていくものだと思ってましたけども、撮影の途中で監督が平山の過去について、特にこの木漏れ日との関係についてとても美しいメモをくださいました。それは本当にラストシーンに向かって、とても力になる素晴らしいメモをいただいたおかげでうまくいきました。
So normally, in this case, our director and Mr. Takasaki, the co-writer of the script, did not really include any explanation about the history of the character, but it was really beautifully written, and so I feel that it's the actor's job to create this background, and still during the shoot, there was this memo that Vim gave me during that time that had the past of the character, and in particular the relationship of him and Komorebi, and that was really a helpful thing leading up to the last scene in the film, so I'm grateful that he shared that.
We had indeed decided, as we were writing the script, to not fill in all the background, but let you, the audience, guess a lot of it, and just have a few hints, like the niece arriving or the sister arriving, sister obviously with a big limousine, and wondering why he lives in such a dump, and asking him, is it true that you're really cleaning toilets? So she comes from a different background, and we guess that's his background too. So that's all we put into the script, but you feel that, you sense that he is not born a toilet cleaner, that he had another more privileged life before. And we felt that was enough. But when Koji-san asked me, it was to make sure that he didn't make it just up on his own, but to share a backstory. And of course he was the only one who read it right to know it, so I had written 3 pages in the preparation for the film, and so we translated it and gave it to Koji-san, and he was kind of happy, and he said it coincided with his own idea, because actors really always need a biography of a character, and it helps so much for every action. And I think the biography was helpful, but then again, we still didn't feel like spilling it out. So forgive us if I'm not more explicit, because I feel like betraying our work if I now start telling you the whole background story that we made up in order to decide that you would never know it.
Very effective choice. It serves the movie quite well, and it draws the viewer in more so when there's blanks that you have to fill in yourself and interpret via his performance. So very well done. Because the ending shot was already brought up, I'll go there next. I have a question for both of you about that. Vim, for you, what kind of direction and notes do you give Koji in order to take us on that emotional roller coaster? And Koji, for you, what are some acting techniques you use to hit all the different layers of that one single shot?
Should I go first? I go first. Nina Simone was, for the longest time, the cover page of the script. So we had a frontispiece, and it was the lyrics of Nina Simone, because I felt I look into the direction of you because you volunteered to admit your screenwriter. It's always good to have some sort of word in front of the script that sort of summarizes a little bit your intention, and everything was in these words by Nina Simone. So it was the frontispiece, and I loved it. And all the music in the movie was always on the set. We didn't make a movie where the music was added afterwards, but it was on the set. He knew the music that he played, and it makes a whole difference. And we felt, Takuma, Takasaki, and I, that the music was part of the storytelling and the songs. And as he doesn't speak much, the music would speak a bit for him. So eventually we decided that Nina Simone had been so important for us that it would be good if that was the outgoing song. And we wanted to release Hirayama out of the film, going to work one more time, but it had to be in a way that it was also an ending. So what I told him was, well, you understand the lyrics of Nina Simone very well. While you drive, you listen to them, and you also reflect on what just happened in the last couple of days. I mean, the guy he met the night before who was dying, and he helped him overcome his pain, at least for a moment, and then he met his sister. All that, I said, is on your mind as you drive and listen to Nina Simone. And of course, you have doubts maybe about if you always did if you did the right thing with your choice. But in the end, you're sure of yourself. So, and he was driving a car in real traffic. You have to know that. This is not an LA shoot. I was not on a trailer. He was driving the car, and he had the lives of four people in his hands. The cameraman on the seat next to him, the sound engineer in the back, the camera assistant, and just truly the director, with a monitor in his hand, sitting cramped in the back of this tiny little car. And so he drives, and he puts on the cassette, and then I look at the monitor, I'm totally in awe what he's doing. I wasn't prepared to see him. And because it exceeded anything I had hoped for. And I looked at my cameraman, and I realized, oh God, he's not looking through the viewfinder anymore. He can't. He's weeping. Tears are streaming down his face. My cameraman is really unable to shoot. But he holds the camera, and just holds it. He knows where it is. But he can't look through the viewfinder anymore because he was so affected. He was so close to him while he was listening to the song. That's all he was ever doing. He was listening to a song, what his whole life was on his face. I don't know how this man does that. I don't know. I'm curious now what he's going to answer to.
監督の演出はですね、もう本当にまず僕の中でとても大きいものっていうのは、台本にはその 笑うとか微笑むとか怒るとかそういうことは一切書いてなかったんですけれども、だから僕は笑うことをしない男だと思っていたんですけども、監督がまず仕事に行く時家を出てで空を見上げてちょっと微笑んでくれと言って、その微笑みが一日の中で何箇所かありました。で一度だけ後輩の清掃員が辞めていったので自分のシフトが変わってすごく大変な時がありました。その時に事務所オフィスに電話する時にここのシーンはとにかく映画の中で一番怒ってくれ、平山が怒ってるシーンだとおっしゃって、でそれをやってみた後にもう監督ともう一人の脚本家に「こんなに怒る人なのかね?」というふうに聞いたら「僕もびっくりしました」って脚本家も言ってましたけども、でもそれは本当に監督が微笑むとか微妙な表情についてアドバイスしてくれたものがとてもこの平山という男が非常に親しみやすく身近にいる人間になったような感じがしました。
So Vim's direction really was a little bit different from what was in the script, because in the script there was nothing about Hiroyama laughing or smiling or getting angry, and so I just thought this was a character that didn't really express all that much. But when Hiroyama was leaving for work, he would say, "Okay, there's a moment where you kind of smile in this time," and he said that a few times, and then there's the moment where his coworker, the young guy, quits, and he said to me, "Okay, when you call the office, this is when you're the most angry in the whole film." And I asked Takuma, the co-writer, does he really get angry? Does his character really get angry like this? And myself and Takuma were both kind of surprised by that, but I realized after seeing the film that advice is really what made him human and relatable.
あとはとにかくこの監督が何でしょうね、撮影の間お芝居をすることにとっても自由にやりなさいというような雰囲気が本当に僕は初めての経験でしたので。
And then I would say that this director here really told me to act freely during this shoot, and that was a really new experience for me.
Act freely means much more, because he so much became Hirayama that after a few days of always rehearsing and watching the rehearsal and then say, "No, we shoot it," and always having that feeling, why didn't I shoot the rehearsal? It was so perfect, and he had become Hirayama so much that I almost felt we doing a documentary on this character. He was so real, and he was so much this modest man who had reduced his means as his own choice, and loved what he was doing and loved certain things that he was doing. So he was that character so much that even in the morning, my DOP and I, we left and we said, "Let's go see Hirayama." It was like going to see a real Argentina, where he lived and what he did. And so it was so liberating when he finally accepted, actually he's never done this, I guess, in his life, that somebody asked him to shoot the rehearsal. And then when we shot the rehearsal, we were so happy that I didn't want another take. And that's how we basically shot all the scenes after the first couple of days till the end of the movie when he was alone. Of course, when there's other actors, we had to rehearse. But when it was just his life, we treated it as if it was a documentary. And in a documentary, you will never rehearse. I mean, come on. You have to rehearse with your people in a documentary. And we didn't. We forgot about the fact that he was fictional. Well, we didn't forget. We shot like it was fiction, but we we liked his character so much, and he was so completely that man that he allowed me to shoot the rehearsals. So he was more than acting freely. He became the film. And we basically had to tell it in a language that would evaluate his everyday life and make his everyday life look as beautiful as I wanted it to look. I think most everyday routines of people in movies are not nice. And I wanted his everyday routine to be gorgeous. And I wanted you to want to live like this. So what about you, Ma? Sorry, I went too far there.
It does have that effect though, because after watching the movie, I might have gone out and gotten a new plant and planted that plant myself, and guess what finally budded very recently? And I credit your movie with inspiring me to be better with plants. I'm totally serious right now.
Wow, I'm grateful that you're telling me. What sort of plant is it?
Oh, I'm not that advanced.
Oh.
All I know is that it's safe, and I'm going to treat it well.
Don't overwater it.
Yes, I've learned that the hard way.
And there's an app when you can take a picture and then it tells you what it is.
I guess we all know what I'm doing when I go home today, and it's not watching the Super Bowl. Now, as promised, I'm going to carve out a little time to squeeze in a couple of audience questions. So who wants to go? Oh, wow, someone very enthusiastic back
So
there. It's all you.
I have a question for Mr. Wenders and a question for Yakusho Koji-san. So, Mr. Wenders, how did you decide to choose the other songs that were in the movie? The Rolling Stones song, which was recorded in 1964 but never released until mid-70s, and also the Animals' House of the Rising Sun, which you also had Ishikawa Sayuri-san sing at the bar. So how did you decide to choose these songs?
Well, we figured in his biography that you do not know that when he decided to lead a different life, he didn't need much from his previous life. But he remembered the time in his life when he really loved music and when music meant a lot to him. And never again afterwards. And that was when he was young, in the 70s. So he remembered that on the attic he still had that old cassette recorder and this whole suitcase full of cassettes. And he got it down, and that was all he needed as music. And anyway, in his truck he couldn't play any other. So when we had decided on that story, and when we wrote the first scene where he drives to work for the first time, it sounded sort of weak when we wrote. He sits in his car and he chooses a cassette and he plays a cassette. So I said to Takuma, come on. It's very important what he's playing here because that's going to make the whole difference. Let's write the song into the script. And we started doing this and realized the script, that was a powerful tool to tell the story and to tell about his character. And eventually I turned to my co-writer and said, I can't do this. Sorry, but I cannot put all my favorite songs into the film. He is a Japanese character. Who knows what he was going to listen to in the 70s when he was young and in his maybe late 60s. So Takuma said, oh, he laughed and said, Vim, you don't have to worry a thing. We listen to exactly the same songs in Japan as you did in Germany or everybody in America. We all listen to the Velvet Underground and the Stones and Patti Smith. Don't worry. Just let's pick the songs that are right for the story. And that's what we did. And the Animal song is interesting because when it's sung in his favorite bar by Mama-san, she writes the original text. She sings the original song. The original song, House of the Rising Sun, is about a fallen girl, a young woman who ends up in a brothel. And when the Animals wanted to record that song, the management said, no, this doesn't work. And they retexted the song and made it about a young man and his blue jeans and his father and God knows what. But that is the cult song we all knew and all grew up with, and it became so much the beginning of the youth culture, that song. So we wrote all the songs with a certain purpose, and I hope I answered your question. The Rolling Stones, yes, that is my favorite song by them, and they mistreated it and never really released it well. And it was the hardest negotiation to get cranked that out of them because they didn't want it. And finally they gave in and said, okay, my film wants it so much, let's have him give him driving through the sleepy city. Anyway, thank you for that
Well,
question.
thank you.
Because this is such a...
And then a quick question for Yakusho Koji-san. Do you clean the toilets in your home now?
めったにしないんですけど、やろうかと思ったんですけど、でもこの映画にも出てきますけども、トイレットペーパーの引き出し口のあれを三角に折りたたむことはよくやってます。
The answer is not often, though I did think about it, and what I am good at is pulling out the toilet paper and folding it in that triangle.
Okay. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you.
Wait a minute, we shot this 4 times. Because it was never perfect enough. He wanted the 2 triangles to be exactly the same. We spent more time on the bloody little shot of the toilet than on the rest of the toilet.
もう今やれば完璧です。パーフェクトです。
If we do it now, it'd be perfect.
All right, we can squeeze in one more question. Who wants it? I'm going to go to the first hand I saw right there.
Well, I shot a documentary over 3 years called Ansam, and it was already opened in Los Angeles before. I don't know if anybody saw it. It's a documentary in 3D. It took a long time. It took 7 shoots. Thank you. It took 7 shoots and took an eternity, and I got the invitation for Perfect Days before I was finished with that. So that's why my answer to the letter was, please give me time. I can come in May when my editor takes 2 weeks off. In the 2 weeks that my editor, after 2.5 years of editing, she wanted a vacation. Understandable, in hindsight. So I used her vacation to go to Tokyo and look at the toilets and find out that I wanted to do something else. And then I told him I can only finally do the movie when I have locked picture. That was in October. As soon as I locked picture and as the film Ansem went into post-production, it was in 3D and complicated, and they knew exactly what they had to do for the next 6 weeks, I went to Tokyo and we shot this film in 16 days. So, and because we shot it so much following his routine, and the script was really based on his daily life, so the editing of this film, for some reason, was the fastest editing ever done. When the Japanese producers, a writer friend, and everybody came to look at the rough cut, I said, I'm sorry, I can't show you the rough cut, because we're finished. So that was why both films all of a sudden were done at the same time. And that's how also both films ended up at the same Cannes Film Festival. This one in competition where he won Best Actor. And the documentary was not in competition because at a documentary it can't, but it was official selection. The documentary took an eternity and the fiction went in no time. And it should be the other way around, I know that, but I remember next time.
We must
Can I
let
just
you
point
go.
out one person standing there?
Oh, yeah.
There's a tall blonde woman, and raise your hand so we know who we're talking about. This is Donata, my wife, and she did all the dream sequences in this film. Shooting 16 days, we couldn't possibly lose 1 second on dream stuff. So Donata, with her 2 women crew, she was one of them, shot and edited all the dreams and did all these marvelous shots of the Komorebi and of the reflections of the day in his dreams every night.
We have to let them go to another screening. They have a lot of promoting to do because this movie received a very, very, very well-deserved Oscar nomination. So we want to spread the word, give Perfect Days all the support we can. Huge congratulations to you guys, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming so much.